Hello guys, welcome to another video. In this section we're gonna talk about transitions. So what are transitions? So transition is an effect, or you can say it's a function that helps to blend between two states. So let's say in the last video we made two animations. One is called PlayerIdle, that we use it for the rest position of the main player, and the other one is called the player walk, that is for the that animation is for the player walk. So whenever the player is walking, we're gonna execute that particular player walk animation. So where is the function? What is the function of the transitions? So let's say when the player is moving from its rest position, we need a blend. We need an effect to blend these two animations. So for that we need transition. That is the purpose of transition, to blend two states. So one in our case, the player idle state and the player walk state. All right, so let's go and make an transition. For that we have to go to Animator. For that, go to Window tab, Animation and Animator. So what is an animator? Animator Controller allows you to arrange and maintain a set of animation clips and associated animation transitions for a character or object. Alright, so here you can see our animations. So our player idle animation and our player walk animation. So here you can see the entry. That's the entry of our game. So you can see that first transition, from entry to player idle, right? So that's the first transition that is going to execute whenever our game started. All right, so here we want to create two transitions between player walk and player idle. Before we create a transition, we have to create a parameter. So what is a parameter? Parameter is a factor or a condition for the transitions. So all these transitions can be controlled by this factor. All right, so in order to make this parameter, go to parameters and you can see the plus sign there. Click on int, or you can if you're working with float value data type, you can go and click on float. For now, for this game project, we are going to create a integer parameter and click on integer, and I'm gonna name it speed. Right, so the initial value of speed is 0. And can we able to access these speed parameter from our script? Yes, we can access this speed parameter from our script. All right, so after initializing the speed parameter, then we can create transitions. So I'm gonna create a transition from player idle to walk. So in order to make a transition, all you have to do is right click on the player idle transition and make a transition and drop the transition line in player walk. That's it. So in the inspector value, you can see all the settings or all the fields. If you want to see the settings for the player transition, click on the transition line and you can see the settings over here. That's a drop down. If you click on the setting drop down, you can see the exit time, all the values. So here we don't want any kind of delay. In order to avoid a transition delay, you can go and uncheck the fixed duration, and I'm gonna put transition 0 for the transition duration, and so this will help to avoid any delays for our transitions. After that, we have to make another transition from player walk to player idle. So right click on player walk and make transition and drag and drop to the player idle. and same thing apply. We don't need any delays for our transition. So go to fixed duration, uncheck, and transition duration 0. So that's pretty much. Alright, we have created the transitions and the parameter called speed. So the initial value of speed will be 0, right? So now we are going to access the speed parameter inside our script. Alright, for that, go to the scripts, player folder, and open the player moment.c# file. Alright, so here you can see this is our player moment.c#. So at the beginning, we are initializing our animator and we are naming the animator as anim, right? And here we are going to access the animator, right? So I'm going to access the speed and give a value to the speed, right? So how we can set a value or how we can assign a value to the speed parameter. So we have to access the speed parameter. So in order to access the speed parameter and giving a value, we have to get the animator, and we know that the speed is a integer value, right? We set the speed as an integer type or integer data type. So we are going to use the set integer and the name of the parameter. For here you have to be a bit careful because C# is case sensitive, so you have to code accordingly, right? So I am accessing the speed parameter. The second argument will be the value. So the first argument is the speed, that's the parameter. The second argument will be the value of the speed, right? So what value we will be giving to the speed parameter? So we need to pass the player body velocity.x. That's the value we want to give to the speed, right? So for that, I'm going to use the mathf.absolute, and we want to pass the player body dot velocity dot x. All right, so here we know that the player body dot velocity dot x is a float value. We cannot pass a float value to the speed because we already initialized speed as an integer. So in this situation, we have to cast the float into integer. So in order to convert a float value to integer, we have to cast the value that we are getting from the player body dot velocity dot x. So I'm going to convert the float value to an integer. All right, and always remember to put the semicolon. All right, and save the file. Let's go back to our Unity engine. All right, we haven't received any of the error. You can go to, if you received any error, the console will show the log data, so you can work accordingly. All right, so our speed value is initialized. Now we have to set the condition so that the transition will work accordingly. All right, after implementing the transitions and our code, let's go and work with conditions. So condition function are some kind of condition that will tells our transition to a specific transition that when should the transition should be executed. So it will control the execution of the transitions. So for that, let's select the transition that we want to make conditions. So I'm going to click the transition that is from PlayerIdle to PlayerWalk. So keep in mind, we have two transitions. One is from PlayerIdle to PlayerWalk. The other one is from PlayerWalk to the player idle. So I'm going to click on player idle to player walk transition. So here you can see on our inspector tab, you can see all the functions. So here on the middle part, you can see the menu called conditions. So here you can see another navbar or another menu that says list is empty. So if you click on the add to the list button or the plus icon, the Unity will automatically inputting our parameter, the speed parameter over here. So if you have any other parameter inside the Unity or our game project, you can add or you can integrate that parameter into the conditions. So we already initiated our speed parameter, and I'm gonna click on the speed parameter. So here, this is the tricky part. So we want the condition to be happen, the idle to player walk condition to happen whenever the player is moving. So we know that when speed is greater than 0, we should execute the player walk. So we know that when speed is greater than 0, we know that the player is moving. So we want the player animation or player walk animation to be happen. So for that, we gonna make a condition that saying that whenever the player speed parameter is greater than 0, we want to execute player walk animation. So this is done, and let's go to the transition from player walk to player idle. So here we know that whenever the player is going to the resting position, so we want the resting position or the player idle animation to be happen. So here we know that whenever the speed is equal to 0, we want to execute the player idle animation. So same procedure, go to the click on the transition, you can see the condition over here, click on the add to the list icon, and again the speed parameter appeared there, and the condition, the operator value will be equal. So whenever it is equal to 0, we want to execute the player idle animation. All right, let's go and run the game. All right, so I'm going to move the our main player object. You can see now our animation is working. So whenever I release the button, and it's go to the resting position, so our animation is working, but you can see there is something happening because our player is sliding, right? It's not moving straight. I mean, it's moving, but there is a slide error is happening. So we will work on that in our next video. So that's all for this video. I know this is a pretty much big lecture, but we'll work on that thing in the next video. So thank you guys for watching the video. If you have any questions, please let me know. Once again, thank you so much. Take care.